Hello, welcome to Traveller's Guide IELTS. Today we are doing some reading and we are looking at reading test 1 from IELTS Book 20. We're going to look at the questions and the answers, and I'm going to explain why these are the correct answers. If you find this video useful, if you enjoy it, please give me a thumbs up. Leave a comment down below with your opinions and subscribe to Traveller's Guide IELTS for more videos like this one. Before we begin, it's just worth mentioning that the IELTS Academic Reading Test has 3 passages, 40 questions, and you get 1 hour to complete all of the questions. And then the number of correct answers you get equates directly to a band score. So you can see if you're aiming for a 6.5 in IELTS, then you need to get 27 questions right or more. Right, let's jump right into it. And we start with reading section 1. Here is the title of the passage. It says, The Kakapo. Before that, you should spend about 20 minutes on questions 1 to 13, which are based on reading passage. Now, that is just a rough guide. 20 minutes is not an exact amount of time, just a suggestion. You can spend as long as you need to on each section. That's just a guide. Now, when you see the title, The Kakapo, first of all, you might start to panic a bit because you've never seen this word before. And I mean, the word looks quite strange. It's got accent lines over the A's and the O. But the IELTS often like to do this. They put a word in the title that they know you will not know to try and throw you off. Actually, it tells you what it is underneath. So the kakapo is a nocturnal, flightless parrot that is critically endangered and one of New Zealand's unique treasures. Well, the word that it doesn't mention there is bird. So the kakapo is a bird. Hopefully you will know the word parrot. I've prepared a picture of the kakapo just to help you understand what we are reading about. Yeah, it is quite tricky, this one. But in a way, it doesn't matter if you know what it is or not. It's just finding the answers to the questions. So the title and the topic it was helpful but not critical if you don't know it. So here is a kakapo. You may have seen videos of this before. A type of parrot. Nocturnal means it is active during the dark hours. It doesn't come out during the daytime. And flightless, it cannot fly, it just walks. And it's from New Zealand. So we can work all of that out from the subtitle there. Now, my method of doing the reading is read the title, read the subtitle, maybe have a look at the start of each paragraph, but don't spend too long reading the paragraph. You don't have enough time to read the whole thing. It might be better to go straight to the questions. So, questions 1 to 6 for this section are true, false, not given questions. You need to choose true if the statement agrees with the information, false if the statement contradicts or disagrees or says the opposite of the information, and not given if there is no information on this. So 6 questions, true, false, not given. There will be at least 1 true, at least 1 false, and at least 1 not given. Number 1 says, there are other parrots that share the kakapo's inability to fly. So we're going to look for other parrots and inability to fly. That takes me to the start of the passage. So if you want to pause the video now, look in this section, see if you can find the right answer, and then play again to see what answer I gave. Then you can. So, looking in this section, we have the phrase, it is the world's only flightless parrot. So, this is the only phrase that we need from the whole passage. There are other parrots. Well, this says only parrot. Inability to fly is another way to say flightless. cannot fly, unable to fly, flightless. So if it is the world's only flightless parrot, that means there are no other parrots that cannot fly. Therefore, number 1, false. The statement that we're given for question 1 is the opposite of what the passage says. Moving on to number 2. Adult kakapo produce chicks every year. Let's have a look. Now, you would expect this kind of information to be near the start of the passage, so it'll take us to paragraph 2, and it talks about kakapo breed in summer and autumn. So breed means producing chicks for a bird. So we know we're in the right place. Every year now, though, is critical. It says in summer and autumn. Well, every year has a summer and an autumn, so that's not going to help us. But what about this part? Only in years when food is plentiful. Plentiful means a lot of or enough, and only in those years when there is a lot of food. So some years there won't be a lot of food, and then the kakapo won't produce chicks. So this one is also false. So question 1 was false. Question 2, false. They don't produce chicks every year, only years when there's a lot of food. Number 3, adult male kakapo bring food back to nesting females. So in this same section, we talk about males and females. Let's talk about the nests. So we have males bring food, though. So females alone incubate eggs and feed the chicks. That suggests that the females are doing all of the work, not the males. And if we look at this sentence, or half a sentence, the female kakapo has to spend long periods away from the nest searching for food. So actually, not only does she look after the eggs, she also goes and collects food for the chicks. The male does nothing, plays no part in incubation or chick rearing. So again, false. So the first 3 answers in this test are all false. On to number 4. The Polynesian rat was a great threat to the kakapo, greater threat to the kakapo than Polynesian settlers. So I've highlighted the phrase Polynesian rat. That might be an easy thing to find within the passage. I often look for words that start with capital letters, or numbers are also easy to spot. So Polynesian rat brings me to this section. I've got the word Polynesian a few times. We've also got settlers, and there is rat. Now, here we have 2 more species of rat were also introduced towards the bottom. So I'm going to dismiss that part because we only want to focus on the Polynesian rat. So other species of rat, ignore that. Right, move back up to the top and we see Polynesian settlers. They ate its meat and used its feathers. So Polynesian settlers are people who come from Polynesia to live in New Zealand. Long time ago. Well, about 700 years ago, it says. So they were a threat to the kakapo because they would eat it and use its feathers. The rat was also a threat because the rats preyed on the kakapo. Preyed also means caught and ate. But was it a greater threat? Here's the issue. We need the word greater. It doesn't say which one was the most dangerous or the biggest threat to the kakapo. It just said that they were both threats. Maybe one was a greater threat than the other. Maybe they were equal. It doesn't say. There's not enough information. So not given is the answer for number 4. Number 5. Kakapo were transferred from Rakira Island to other locations because they were at risk from feral cats. So we can find the name of this island in this paragraph. Okay, And it also mentions feral cats, so we know we're in the right place. Feral is like a pet cat that has escaped and become wild. So, looking at some of the vocabulary we can match up from the question to the passage. Yellow, because, is equal to as a result. In blue, we've got evacuated, which is the same in this case as transferred. And we've got 3 island sanctuaries in purple, which matches up with other locations. So that does sound like it's saying the same thing. The answer to this one, true. So at risk from, predation by as well can help us to show that. But evacuated to, transferred from is the important part. Number 6. One recovery plan initiative that helped increase the kakapo population size was caring for struggling young birds. Here we have a paragraph that talks about the recovery plan. Again, pause it now and look for the answer yourself, or keep listening. So we know we're in the right place. Recovery plan is there. I've highlighted in blue caring for, matching up with rescuing and hand raising. Struggling, failing, both mean they're finding things difficult. And young birds, also known as chicks. So this certainly looks like it's got the same kind of information. But did this, what they were doing, caring for the young birds, did it help to increase the population size? That's the important part. So earlier in orange it says the population did not start to increase until the birds were more intensively managed. So that is true. So we've matched up the caring for struggling young birds section. Did it help to increase it? It says that the population did not increase until they did this, which means that once they did this, it did increase, therefore true. Right, on to section, still section 1, the next part, 7 to 13. We need to choose one word and or a number from the passage for each answer. And the passage, the title is New Zealand's Kakapo. So there are missing words to put in. This is very important that we stick to the one word and or a number from the passage. So it could be one word, it could be one word and a number, or it could be just a number. But it must be from the passage as it's written in the passage. That would be the right answer. Looking at number 7 and 8. So we know the kakapo is a type of parrot. Diet consists of fern fronds, various parts of a tree, and what? And then for number 8, nests are created in something where eggs are laid. So let's first look at number 7 and the diet. Diet means what you eat. So here we are. Oh, it actually says the same word, diet, so we're fine with that. Diet consists of, including, various parts of a tree, leaves, roots, and bark of trees. These are all parts of trees. And fern fronds is there, the same in yellow. So we want one more thing that they eat. It's going to be over here, as well as bulbs. So bulbs goes into number 7. If you're wondering what bulbs are, here they are. It's like a round part of a plant where it can grow from. Onions, for example, here grow from a bulb or a set. Right, number 8. Back to this section, and we're talking about where eggs are laid. And there's the phrase eggs are laid. So 1 to 4 eggs are laid in soil, which is repeatedly turned over. So that is quite important. It doesn't really mention nest here at all, but it is laid in soil, so the nests are created in soil where eggs are laid. It's kind of the same thing, just worded back to front. But there we go. So number 8, soil. Here we have a picture of a kakapo nest, as you can see, just in some soil. There are the eggs just laid there in the soil. The female, of course, has to go off and find food for herself while she's incubating, so she does need to leave the eggs on their own at times. Then, number 9 is about the arrival of Polynesian settlers. The something of the kakapo were used to make clothes. We've seen Polynesian settlers before in this passage, so let's bring this paragraph up again that talked about Polynesian settlers. So, to make clothes. Here we have to make soft cloaks. A cloak is a kind of clothing that you would wrap around yourself. So this is an example of clothes. So what do they use to make these clothes? Well, they ate its meat and used its feathers to make soft cloaks. So the word feathers goes in there. Make sure you don't just write feather singular, because you wouldn't be able to make a cloak from one feather. We need feathers. It is a countable noun. On to number 10, arrival of European colonizers. And number 10, something were an animal which they introduced that ate the kakapo's food sources. So we know number 10, we're looking for a type of animal, or the name of an animal. Oh, there's a picture of some feathers that I just wanted to mention. So European colonizers are in the same paragraph. So we're in the right place. We don't need to go anywhere. We need an animal and something that ate the kakapo's food sources. So it eats the same food that the kakapo eats. Down here we've got depleted, means reduced or took away, and there is food. So what is it that is depleting the food for the kakapo? It is this deer. Deer is a kind of animal. So deer goes in number 10. And there's a picture of a deer. So the deer, they're not native to New Zealand. So they come in, they've been brought in by Europeans, and they eat the kakapo's food. The last section here, we have 11, 12 and 13, and this is about protecting kakapo. So we've got a name, Richard Henry. He tried to protect the kakapo. So we can look for his name to see if we're in the right section. And we also have the name of this island again, Rakiru Island. I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly, but we can find that in the passage. And there's recovery plan, which we have seen previously as well. So let's bring up this section and see if you can find the answer to number 11 in here. Well, a definite sighting of female kakapo on Rakira Island was reported in the year something. So for number 11, we know it must be a year. And in this paragraph, we have several different years mentioned. So, definite sighting of a female. That means definite, yes, we have seen a female kakapo for sure. So 49, 73, no females. 74, 77, still no females. In 77, a large population of males was spotted. So these years that are mentioned don't sound very likely. However, there's the word females. Was this a definite sighting? In 1980, it was confirmed females were also present. So 1980 is the correct answer for number 11. On to number 12. Let's bring up this part with the recovery plan in it. We've seen this before. So, recovery plan included an increase in. And a phrase that means the same as an increase in is a higher amount of. And it's a higher amount of funding, which would suggest that the recovery plan included an increase in funding, that is money given to it, possibly from the government or some organisation, funding is correct. And on to 13, still about the recovery plan, but there is another section which includes recovery plan. Here it is. A current goal of the recovery plan is to maintain the involvement of something in Kakapo protection. Okay, current goal. Well, current is today, and there its key goals are. Okay. So maintain and involvement. Maintain, continue. Involvement, fully engaged. And protection is similar to preservation. So, looking here at some of the words around this, what do they want to involve? What do they want to continue to be fully engaged? That is the stakeholders. So here we have stakeholders. Stakeholder is just a word that means anyone who has an interest in something. So it could be individuals, the public, it could be groups of people, it could be businesses. Okay, so that's stakeholders. And that is the end of section 1. So let's move now on to section 2. This one again says about 20 minutes. So we did spend about 20 minutes on section 1, so we're on time. Questions 14 to 26 are based on reading passage 2. And the title of it is Return of the Elm, Introducing the Beloved Tree to Britain. So, an elm is a kind of tree. Again, if you don't know this, hopefully you can infer it from the full title. You can work out what it is. And then the subtitle, Mark Rowe investigates attempts to reintroduce elms to Britain. So the idea is to bring this tree back to the UK. Mark Rowe is the name of the journalist who has written this passage. Questions 14 to 18, we have to choose the correct section. So you will see that reading passage 2 is divided into sections A to G. More or less one paragraph per section. Sometimes they might have 2. But that's why it doesn't say 7 paragraphs A to G, but sections. So you need to choose A, B, C, D, E, F or G to say which section contains the information. So the question is going to give us some information. Where can we find that in the passage? At the bottom there it says NB. You may use any letter more than once. This is very important. So, in fact, it probably wouldn't say this if you didn't have to use a letter more than once. So when I see this written there, I think, oh, we must have to use one letter more than once. So don't think once you've used a letter that you can discount that section and you will never use that letter again, because you might. Question 14. So we're looking for which section contains the information, reference to the research problems that arise from there being only a few surviving large elms. So we're going to look for research problems, only a few surviving large elms. Well, if we bring up this paragraph, it says, research matches with identify and study. Problems, opportunities are limited. Only a few, the number relatively small. And then surviving large elms, mature survivors. Okay, and this was in the section C of the passage. This is one of those sections that has 2 paragraphs. So this is the second half of section C, which is why you can't see the C in the picture. But we have found all the information we need in section C, 14C. 15. Which section contains details of a difference of opinion about the value of reintroducing elms to Britain? Difference of opinion. So it's going to be 2 different people or groups of people who have a different point of view. And then the value of reintroducing it, if it's worth doing or not. In section G, value of reintroducing. So one person is saying the case for reintroducing is strong. So that's one opinion saying that it has a lot of value. So an opinion there for her, it is a good thing. So just restating her opinion. Difference of opinion, though, is important. Others are more wary. So someone else is saying you're effectively cloning, there's risk of new diseases. The best thing you can do is just give nature time to recover. So that is showing a difference of opinion, and that is in section G. So 15G. 16. Where can we find reference to how Dutch elm disease was brought into Britain? Now, before I even looked for the answer, I expected this to be near the start of the passage, because it's a bit of background information. It's kind of setting the scene, which I would expect to come near the start. So how it was brought into Britain, well, in section B, the second paragraph of the passage, it talks about shipments of elm from Canada, and beetles were carrying a virulent strain. So this is showing how it was brought in from Canada on beetles. So the answer is B. And yes, it was near the start of the passage, as I suspected. 17. Where can we find a description of the conditions that have enabled a location in Britain to escape Dutch elm disease? So we need conditions, we need a location, and we need escape or not being affected by the disease. Now, I'm going to show you, first of all, part of section C. This is the first paragraph in section C, because you might think it was here. We have a location, Cambridgeshire, and we have the word escape, escaped the epidemic. So you might think that this was the answer. It'd be easy to get mistaken here. But does it describe the conditions? Weather conditions or environmental conditions, something like that? No. Instead, you need to go on to section E. Here we have another location mentioned. This time it's Brighton on the south coast of England. Escape the disease. Well, there are around 17,000 trees there, elm trees specifically, so they have escaped the disease. And what are the conditions? Local factors is another word for conditions, and it gives an example, strong winds from the sea. So actually the answer to number 17 is E. If you did do this test previously and you put C as the answer, I completely understand why, but it doesn't answer all of the question. Instead, we need to go to E. 18. Where can we find reference to the stage at which young elms become vulnerable to Dutch elm disease? So we need the stage, young elms, vulnerable. Back here in section C, where we just looked before and found a wrong answer, we have young elms, small elms. We have the stage. So once the trunk of the elm reaches 10 to 15 centimeters or so in diameter. So that's the stage of its growth that it's at. And then does it become vulnerable? It gets targeted. It's a perfect size for the beetles and the fungus can take hold. So yes, that is now vulnerable to this disease. So for 18, that one is C. And we have used C before, so this is where we are using the same letter more than once. For the next part, questions 19 to 23, we're going to look at we're going to look at some statements, and there are three people who may have said these things. The three people are A, Matt Elliott, B. Karen Russell. C. Peter Bourne. For this one, we have 5 statements, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, and we have to match them with one of 3 people. So again, it says you may use any letter more than once, but this time, obviously, we must, because there are more questions than there are possible letters. Make sure we put the letter of the person, not the name of the person, or the letter of the paragraph. So let's look at, so what I decided to do for this was look in the paragraphs and make a list of who is saying what in the paragraph. So I could work out that paragraph A contains quotes from Eliot. Paragraph B doesn't contain quotes from any of these 3 people. C, quotes from Russell. D, again, no quotes. E has quotes from Bourne. F has quotes from Russell. And paragraph G has quotes from Russell and Eliot. So this is where we can look at to find the quotes. We can ignore paragraphs B and D, or sections B and D, for this section. Okay, so number 19. If a tree gets infected with Dutch elm disease, the damage rapidly becomes visible. Who said this? Well, if we then go to section F, in this paragraph, we have damage. So effects is a synonym for damage in this case, and it gives examples like leaf loss or maybe even death. They might have died. Rapidly, we have very quick, and to illustrate that, we have in 4 to 6 weeks, which in the life of a tree is relatively quick or rapid. So this, there's a bit more. Visible, we have the word show. Show no symptoms, show leaf loss, that's what is visible. Gets infected, so injecting a tiny amount of the pathogen. The scientists are actually infecting the tree themselves on purpose to carry out the test. So that just is further proof that we're in the right place. This paragraph, paragraph B, is Russell. Karen Russell. It just has her surname. That's okay. That's enough. So the answer is B. Number 20. Who says it may be better to wait and see if the mature elms that have survived continue to flourish? Now, we've just looked at this when we were looking at the difference of opinion in a previous question. So if we bring this section back up, section G, it might be better, the best thing you can do. Wait and see, give nature time. The word survived is the same, and continue to flourish, resistance. So if they don't have resistance, they will die, they will not continue to flourish. Continue to flourish means keep growing, keep surviving well. So this one is Eliot. So you can see Eliot's name right at the end. He's the one who has said this. It was his opinion that's different from Russell's. So A is the answer from that Eliot. 21. There must be an explanation for the survival of some mature elms. Who said this? Well, if we look at this part, we've got the word survival, explanation, reasons. Mature elms, mature is there as well. Now this bit is key in green, there must be. So someone said, I don't see how it can be entirely down to luck. So they don't think it's luck. In other words, there must be a reason. This was Russell who was saying this. Again, there's Karen Russell's name in the middle of this paragraph. So the answer is B. 22. Who said, we need to be aware that insects carrying Dutch elm disease are not very far away? If we go back to paragraph E, the one that's about Brighton, we can see that We have a mention of some insects. Beetles are a type of insect, and not very far away, they have used the idiom right on our doorstep. So it's not literally outside our door, but it means very close. So this is Bourne who's speaking in this section. Peter Bourne, that's answer C. And 23, the last one in this section. You understand the effect Dutch elm disease has had when you see evidence of how prominent the tree once was. Who said that? In paragraph A, we have this section, these words, okay. Effect, we have impact there twice. See evidence, look at old photographs, so looking and seeing, and how prominent the trees once were. They were significant large trees, then they were gone. So the answer here is A for Matt Elliott. Just to to reiterate, the A here stands for Matt Elliott from the options, not paragraph A. So I have seen people put the paragraph letter down instead of the person letter. So say, for example, this had been Peter Bourne speaking in paragraph A, then the answer would have been C, because it's the person and not the paragraph. Right, the next few questions, there is a summary to complete. We need to choose one word only from the passage. Again, always read these instructions very carefully. One word only. It is about uses of a popular tree. We have a mention of Bronze Age and cutty sark, so that's a good way to close in on the right section. So, looking at number 24. For hundreds of years, the only tree that was more popular in Britain than elm was what? So we're looking for another kind of tree, one that is the most popular. Oh, okay. In section D, it mentions 4 different types of tree as well as the elm. We have oak, birch, ash, and hazel. You might not be familiar with these types of trees, but there they are. So, for hundreds of years matches up with for centuries in the passage. In Britain, it's the same there in yellow, but the only one that was more popular than means that one tree was number 1, elm was number 2. So elm ran a close second to oak. Therefore, birch, ash, hazel, they are not more popular. It has to be oak. 24, oak. Looking at 25, in the 18th century, it was grown to provide wood for boxes and something else. So we're still talking about oak here. In the Bronze Age, there it is. It was used for, oh, no, we're not. We're talking about elm. So starting in the Bronze Age, many tools were made from elm. People used it to make weapons. So it was shields and early swords. Swords are a kind of weapon. Shields are more for protection, but they can also be used as a weapon. So that matches up with that. Then in the 18th century, it was grown, it was planted to provide wood for boxes. Now here we have items such as storage crates. A storage crate is a large wooden box that you might transport things in. And what else? And flooring. So flooring is the answer to 25. I'm sure you've seen wooden floors before. Moving on then to number 26. Due to its strength, elm was often used for mining equipment, and the cutty sarks, what was also constructed from elm. The cutty sark was a kind of boat or a 19th century sailing ship, as it mentions there. Notice in the question it says the cutty sarks something. So we're looking for something belonging to the cutty sark. We have a mention of mining equipment there as well at the end. So it must come before cutty sark. Here we have It was used to build the keel of the 19th century sailing ship Cutty Sark. So it is the Cutty Sark's keel. It was constructed from elm. I've provided a picture here of a boat. This might be the Cutty Sark or something similar. The keel is the very bottom part of the body of the boat, or the hull. The keel runs along the underside and is usually underwater while the boat is sailing. I don't expect you to have seen the word keel before. This is quite an unusual word to learn, but hopefully you can work out from the context that this is what the answer must be. Right, we're on to the final passage now, the third passage, reading passage 3. Again, you should spend about 20 minutes on questions 27 to 40. And we do seem to be quite on track. We've spent 20 minutes on each section so far. Okay. Based on reading passage 3, and the title of the passage is How Stress Affects Our Judgment. There's no subtitle this time, just the title. Stress, feeling like a lot of things are difficult, or you've got a lot to do, can cause a feeling of stress, and how it affects our judgment, how we make decisions, what we decide to do. For questions 27 to 30, we need to choose the correct letter A, B, C, or D. So these are multiple choice questions. Let's look at the first of these, number 27. In the first paragraph, the writer introduces the topic of the text by doing what? Well, I do love it when they tell us where the answer can be found. In the first paragraph. So let's bring up the first paragraph. Again, if you want to pause it now and look through, you can. And I will now discuss them. So for this one, does he introduce the topic by defining some commonly used terms? So we've got terms like stressed, anxious, medical, financial, professional, processing. Terms, just another word for keywords or names for things, vocabulary. But does he define these words? No, he doesn't say what they mean. Defining means explaining the meaning of something. So that doesn't happen. It mentions a lot of commonly used terms, doesn't define them. A, can rule that out. On to B, questioning a widely held assumption. Assumption is what people believe. Does he question it? Well, there is a question mark at the end of the paragraph. So that might suggest that he's questioning something. But really, this is just a rhetorical question that he is going to then talk about himself. Better or worse? Is that an assumption? No, he's not making it clear what people assume. In fact, he's giving two different opposite options. So we can rule out B. On to C. Does he mention a challenge faced by everyone? So, everyone. We've got our, where, we, and all. That's kind of suggesting everyone. And a challenge, weighing up information. Let's just look at D quickly there. Does he specify a situation which makes us most anxious? Well, important decisions, medical, financial, professional decisions. These are examples of different situations that make us anxious, but does he say which one makes us the most anxious? No. So we were right with C. It is a challenge faced by everyone. The other three, we can rule them out. So there are two ways to find the correct answer in these multiple choice ones. You can either find the right answer or you can eliminate the wrong answers. Either way is fine, or maybe a combination of both. On to 28. What point does the writer make about firefighters in the second paragraph? Again, telling us exactly where we need to find it. Second paragraph, and there are the firefighters mentioned, although they do come up in a few paragraphs. But second paragraph. So what point does he make about the firefighters? Well, I've highlighted some keywords here in each of the options. A is about regular changes of stress levels. B, strategies they use to handle stress. C, that their job is typical of many public service professions. Or D, their personalities make them especially well suited. Well, I didn't really find anything about B, C and D in there. Strategies they use, so things that they do to manage stress, doesn't really talk about what they do about stress. It talks about what they do in their daily working life, but not to handle stress. For C, is it typical of many public service professions? I don't really see any other public service professions mentioned there. And D, it doesn't talk about their personalities, in this section at least. So A is the right answer here. And just to double check, changes, we have ups and downs, ideal, perfect, and study subjects, experiment on the people. So A is correct, 28A. 29. What is the writer doing in the fourth paragraph? Here comes the fourth paragraph. So have a look here. Are they explaining their findings, justifying their approach, setting out their objectives, or describing their methodology? Findings. Findings is another word for results. What they found when they were doing the experiments. Does it explain the findings? No. Does it justify their approach? So saying why we did it this way. Approach is the way they did it. No. There's nothing in there about explaining why they did it this way or trying to argue that they did the right thing. C, setting out their objectives. Objective means what they want to achieve or what they're hoping to find. Does it explain what they want to find there? No, it doesn't, which only leaves us with D, describing the methodology. That means talking about what they did, in what order. So methodology, we did this, and then because of that, we then gave this, that kind of thing. And it talks about, we asked them to estimate. We then gave them good news, bad news, and finally asked them to provide new estimates. So that is the method of the experiment. They are describing their methodology. D is the correct answer for 29. And on to number 30. In the seventh paragraph, the writer describes a mechanism in the brain. Here comes the seventh paragraph. We can see that there, and the brain is mentioned, so we're definitely in the right place. Right, I've highlighted or underlined this part of the sentence, specifically in response to unexpected warning signs, such as faces expressing fear. These are the key words that we need to match up with one of the four options. So faces expressing fear are indications of external threats. If there is a threat, you are likely to show fear. Indication, expressing. Looking at the other ones, responding more quickly. Is there anything about faster or slower? There is a mention of sudden, but that's not responding. And then controlling our levels of anxiety. No. Communicating the sense of danger. So expressing fear, communicating, expressing, similar, but C is the correct answer. Okay, the next part, 31 to 35. We need to complete each sentence with the correct ending. So here we have a good old-fashioned first half, second half, match them up type question. We have different options, A to G. Here are the options that we are choosing from. And again, we put the correct letter as our answer. At times when they were relaxed, the firefighters usually what? In this section, talking about relaxed, there is relaxed. So this is what happened when the firefighters were relaxed. So they usually what? They will ignore bad news and embrace the good. So this is what happened when they were relaxed, refers to ignoring bad news, embracing good news. Okay, so bad news, don't look at that. Good news, yes, let me know about this. So which of the options does that fit with best? So B says they took relatively little notice of bad news. So take no notice of something is to ignore it, and bad news is the same. So respond to negative and positive information in the same way. That would fit grammatically, but ignoring bad news, embracing good news, these are the opposite, not the same way. So it's not C. So we'll go with B. Took relatively little notice of bad news. Yes, that is right. Next, 32. The researchers noted that when the firefighters were stressed, they what? Now, we can rule out some of these because grammatically they just don't make sense. The answer is going to be in this section here. Again, pause, look at it, and then continue. When the firefighters were stressed. So when they were under stress, it says, which is the same, and under these conditions, that these refers to when they were stressed or under stress. So what? They were hypervigilant to bad news, altered their beliefs in response. So we can rule out A, B, D, and E because they just don't make sense. So look at A, for example. The researchers noted that when the firefighters were stressed, they made them feel optimistic. Who made them feel, what made them feel optimistic? It doesn't make any sense. So we can rule that one out. Only C, F, and G actually make sense grammatically. So C, though, responded to negative and positive information in the same way. We've got hypervigilant to bad news, altered their beliefs in response. That's not talking about in the same way. And behaved in a similar manner regardless of the circumstances. That's very similar to C. Whereas G thought it more likely they would experience something bad. So altered their beliefs is the same as saying that. G is the correct answer for 32. 33. When the firefighters were told good news, they always what? Again, the firefighters is they in the question. So they made them feel optimistic. Doesn't make sense. They put them in a stressful situation. Doesn't make sense. Rule out A and E. And the correct answer can be found here. Embrace the good news. Stress didn't change how they responded to good news. Okay, so when they're relaxed, they embrace the good news. When they're stressed, it doesn't change how they respond. So they behaved in a similar manner, regardless of the circumstances. This is pointing to answer F. Number 34. The students' cortisol levels and heart rates were affected when the researchers did what? We're on to the students now, so it's a different section, and cortisol is important. Here in this section, we've got students' cortisol mentioned. Cortisol levels and heart rates were affected. Well, cortisol levels spiked and heart rates went up. So here we have the cortisol levels and heart rates being affected, but when the researchers did what? When the researchers told them they had to give a surprise public speech. Okay, so that's what they did. And that is a stressful situation. This is an example of a stressful information, and it was the researchers who put them in that situation. So E is the correct answer for 34. 35. In both experiments, negative information was processed better when the subjects what. Both experiments. So that's talking about the firefighters and the students. So we observed the same pattern in students. This is showing that the students and the firefighters had the same type of thing. Negative information was processed better. They suddenly became better at processing alarming information. Alarming information is negative information. Process better at processing. When the cortisol levels spiked and the heart rates and went up, this is when they were feeling under stress. Okay, so they've been put in a stressful situation. It's kind of saying the same thing, really, but worded in a different way. So when the subjects put them in a stressful situation, that wouldn't make sense grammatically. That's why we have to go with D. 35D. And the final set of questions, 36 to 40, these are yes, no, not given questions. So now we need to choose yes if the statement agrees with what the writer has claimed. No if the statement we're given says the opposite or contradicts what the writer says, and not given if it's impossible to know what the writer thinks about this because they haven't expressed it. One thing to be aware of, yes, no, not given, is not the same as true, false, not given, although it is very similar. Make sure you write yes, not true. Okay, number 36. The tone of the content we post on social media tends to reflect the nature of the posts in our feed. Does this statement agree with the writer in the passage, disagree, or we don't know? It actually took me quite a long time to find this answer, but here we are in this paragraph. So we've got mention of social media, but that comes up several times in the passage. The nature of the feeds. So if we observe positive feeds, then the tone that we post uplifting messages. That is a type of tone. So overall, yes. That statement does agree with what the writer has written. Just to reiterate, do not write true for this because it's a yes, no, not given question. It's almost doing the same job as true, but we have to read the instructions carefully and make sure we write what we've been asked to. 37. Phones have a greater impact on our stress levels than other electronic media devices. So here we have a bit about phones, social media, different devices. Here we go. Stress levels. So raises your pulse, makes you sweat, enlarges your pupils. These are impact on our stress levels. However, the question says the word greater, and we have more than daily activities. So you might be thinking yes, because greater impact, more than, and stress levels, everything's kind of there. But this is the key part. Is it greater than other electronic media devices? The passage is saying it's greater than most daily activities. So not devices, but things that you do every day. So we have to go for not given on this one. It's not saying the opposite of the statement. It's not actually saying whether it's greater or not greater. So not given is the answer for 37. 38. The more we read about a stressful public event on social media, the less able we are to take the information in. So the answer will be in this paragraph. Take the information in, take in negative reports. The reports are the information. And the more we read about it, exaggerating, spreading from one person to the next. So that's more and more things coming along. But the question says the less able we are, and the passage says enhances the likelihood. Enhances more likelihood, more likely to happen. So it's actually saying the opposite. That's why we're going for no for number 38. 39, the penultimate question. Stress created by social media posts can lead us to take unnecessary precautions. Okay, that is going to be here. Stress caused by social media posts. There's a mention of social media and a mention of stress. But again, they are mentioned in other places. So, can lead us to, as a result, take precautions. Trips are cancelled, stocks are sold. So far, it is matching up. But what about this word unnecessary? Unnecessary means not needed or something you don't have to do. So the disaster took place across the globe, or holding on is the best thing to do. So actually, it's suggesting that these are unnecessary precautions. This is not the right thing to do, but it can happen. So the answer is yes. So stress caused by social media, as a result, trips are cancelled, they don't need to, the disaster was somewhere else, stocks are sold, they shouldn't, they should hold on to them. These precautions are unnecessary. And the final question, number 40, our tendency to be affected by other people's moods can be used in a positive way. The good news, however, is that positive emotions such as hope are contagious too. So, be affected by other people's moods. Positive emotions are contagious. Contagious, often used in a negative way to describe a disease that is spread from one person to another. In this case, it's in a positive way. But can this be used in a positive way? So, including people to act to find solutions, help us frame our messages more effectively? Yes. So we're using these other people's moods in a positive way. So number 40, the statement agrees with the claims of the writer. So our answer is yes. Right, that is the end of the test. If you have done this test and you want to check your answers, here are all of the answers in one screen. You can pause this and double check your answers if you want. And count up your score. How many did you get correct? And then translate that into a band score. Hopefully you got the score that you need for whatever you are applying for. Well, that takes us to the end of this video. So thank you very much for watching. I hope you've managed to stay until the end. I hope you found this useful. And I would like to wish you good luck with your ongoing studies and your upcoming test if you have one. If you found the video useful, please press the thumbs up, leave a comment if you want, and subscribe to this channel for more IELTS videos like this one. Thanks for watching, goodbye for now, and see you again next time.